beginning on it. You know, the spiritual religious culture here that we refer to as Hinduism is actually called Sanatana Dharma. I won't go into all the history of it, but the word Hindu was actually a word given by non-Hindus to the people who lived on the banks of the Sindhu River in what we call the Indus Valley civilization. And they couldn't say S of Sindhu, so they said Hindu, meaning the people who live on the banks of the Sindhu River. Now I mention this because to Hindus, their tradition is actually called Sanatana Dharma. Dharma is Dharma. Sanatan means eternal. No beginning, no end. It's always existed. And so it's impossible to put a beginning and to say, well, is it the actual land? Is it the actual soil? Or is it the people who have come and have inhabited the land and the soil? In a physically smaller way, it's like saying, why Rishikesh? What makes Rishikesh so powerful? Is it the actual energy land, or is it the thousands of years of saints and sages meditating and attaining enlightenment? Well, it's both. Because there was something in the land that drew them anyway. There's a reason this is the land that Ganga flowed down. And there is an incredibly heightened, powerful spiritual energy by the presence of Mother Ganga. And then by the presence of the sages and the saints and the rishis who came and have meditated. And in the same way with India as a larger example, I think there's something very powerful in the land itself. I think there is a reason that India has always been so rich in natural resources. I mean, this is what led all of the invaders who came didn't come because they were looking for Dharma. They didn't come because they were, on a search for peace that led them thousands of miles on, horseback from their kingdom in the days long before any other form of transportation. They were looking for money, wealth, jewels, gems, gold, natural resources. So, whether you look at that which other people say is wealth, because it's gems, or whether it's what we would call wealth, which is spiritual energy, I think the very land itself, the very soil itself, is very powerful and very rich on all of those levels. But then you have something in which, on this sacred, rich land, we have had the footsteps of, the life of Bhagwan Ram, Bhagwan Krishna. We've had these divine beings come onto this earth, fill this very physical landscape with their presence, with their teachings, with the impact of their lives. And then you have an entire culture dedicated to continuing to hear about, to sing the glories of, to tell the stories of, to learn, to emulate, to pray. That they too can embody these divine tenets. So you've got billions and billions of, if you look at the history of India, however many people to date have actually lived here, and who have lived in a culture that is rooted in honoring, celebrating, embodying, becoming these divine beings. Because I think there's something very special about the spiritual culture here, which is not only worship God, but realize that you are God. So the teaching is not just let us pray to a being who inhabited this planet thousands of years ago, but let us realize that that being is still here, number one, and number two, that that being is not separate from me, that I am an embodiment of that divine. And so you've got a culture that for thousands and thousands and thousands of years has cultivated populations and civilizations of people spending their lives to realize the divine truth of themselves. So it's not just religiosity, it's not just praying to God, but it's actually a personal realization of the presence of God within. And so I think that when you add all of that together, what you've got is this incredible energy that's inherent in the land, inherent in the soil and the water and the air. And you've got thousands of years of powerful history of this very land being walked by so many awakened beings, by so many enlightened masters who are sharing and teaching and spreading and inspiring, and so many seekers who are listening and learning and thriving. And so it becomes a very, very powerful energetic vortex for transformation. On all of those levels. And I think it draws people like you all from all over the world who are pulled to that. It's like you walk through an airport, okay? Now, let's say you've just eaten breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever meal it may be. This used to be only everywhere in America. I've now started noticing it in India as well. You walk through an airport. Suddenly, even you're not hungry at all, you've just eaten. And suddenly there's this smell of hot, buttery popcorn. Right? And you look over and there's some stall selling hot, buttery popcorn. And suddenly, no matter how full you are, no matter whether you like popcorn, don't like popcorn, suddenly there's this sense of pulling you toward thinking, I should have some popcorn. Because that smell is so overpowering that it draws you to it. And I think in a way, India's got that type of power that even if you didn't think you were on a spiritual path, like I came without even thinking I was on a spiritual path, nonetheless, the power is so strong that it just grabs you. And it pulls you. And it fills you with something much more lasting, much more real, much more nourishing than hot, buttery popcorn. But I think it's that degree of unmistakable, almost unrefusable energetic pull, whether you were looking for it or not. And if you were looking for it, then even more so. other questions?